In 2022, in the span of 7 months, I went hopping from one bike to the next in what seems to me now, in hindsight, a rather inexplicable mad dash to find the perfect bike. I went from a Moto Guzzi V7 3-stone to a Kawasaki Z900 RS to a Royal Enfield Intercepted 650, and finally to the last one, the 2014 Harley Davidson Dyna Lowrider, a bike that I truly loved and still love riding. Then, within a month of having the lowrider, I walked away from it all entirely. At the time, I really believed it was forever. I didn't just stop riding, I gave it all up. The bike, most of the gear I had accumulated over the years, and even the books. All the books I had on motorcycles and motorcycle adventures, or anything that reminded me of my motorcycle life, basically. So, what happened? Well, let's go for a ride, and I'll tell you what happened.
The simple answer why I gave up riding motorcycles for about 2 years and 9 months is that I had 2 accidents that summer, in the summer of 2022. The first one was on the Kawasaki Z900 RS, and the second one on the Harley Dyna. Now both happened in the rain, both happened at slow speeds. In fact, the second accident happened at 5 miles per hour, which left me utterly dazed and confused for a while. The road was lightly wet, which is always a most dangerous condition for riding. I was on the Harley Dyna, riding downhill towards a stop sign at maybe 5 miles per hour or less. And as I approached the sign, the rear wheel lost traction and slipped out, and down I went. And the sudden jerk and weight of the bike almost ripped my left arm from my shoulder. I was utterly fortunate. Neither accident left me with any serious physical injuries. So in brief, the accidents became the primary catalyst for my decision to stop riding. Now, the more complicated answer has to do with the fact that the accidents left their mark where it matters most, in my heart and peace of mind. Usually when setbacks come a bit spaced out, one has time to recover, but when they happen back to back, as they did in my case, it starts to feel personal. Like the gods of old are trying to tell you something. Read the warning signs. You're a rider. Don't be a fool to miss all those warning signs along the way. It took me a while to make sense of what happened to me. What happened to me apparently happens to many others and seems to be a common phenomenon amongst our tribe. I literally had to look it up. Why do people give up riding motorcycles? Now, I don't know about you, but I love motorcycle forums. I've learned so much from these forums about motorcycle maintenance, as well as the life of riding motorcycles and everything else that comes with it, including the joys and disappointments of such life. In a way, these forums are also a form of therapy for riders. I've also recently discovered motorcycle forums, or threads as they're called, on Reddit. And yes, I'm well aware it's been around for a while. And so I started reading on why riders give up on riding motorcycles. The answers varied, but they were enlightening and mainly focused on the following. The first reason seems to involve family and responsibilities that come with it. Now, this seems to be a major factor for most people. Many walk away from motorcycles because they crossed or traversed the bridge between the single life and life with a partner, and suddenly realize that love and loving someone means being responsible for them and the little humans that may follow such a union. I don't know if you've ever read The Little Prince by a wonderful French writer whose name I'm now going to butcher, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. In this little treatise on love and loss, which we give to our children to read, he wrote, "People have forgotten this truth, but you mustn't forget it. You become responsible forever for what you've tamed. You're responsible for your rose, that is, the one you love, the one you've tamed, and the one who has tamed you." Well, this sentiment seems to ring true for many motorcycle riders, and it was partly the reason for my decision to stop riding in this case. The second reason seems to be the fear that sets in after riders or someone they know was in an accident. While I do not know the statistics for this, or any of the reasons listed here for that matter, it turns out that many riders walk away from riding after a bad riding experience like a crash, especially if it shakes their confidence or sense of control. Even minor incidents like mine involving low-speed crashes or tip-overs or losing traction can deeply rattle someone. And this was definitely what happened to me, which I will explain in a minute. Next, for a lot of people, riding starts to feel a bit like a burden. I don't know if I can describe that feeling, but it feels like constant pressure or worry lodged in your chest and mind that, like a cloud, kind of follows you everywhere, no matter your attempts to escape it. Once it lodges itself into you, it's pretty much over, at least for a while. What once felt adventurous and freeing and liberating and sort of therapy can start to feel like an unwelcoming and overwhelming burden. Gearing up for every ride, staying alert all the time, fighting traffic, avoiding virtually everything on the road that's trying to, well, harm you, sometimes unintentionally and sometimes intentionally. And this was definitely what I started to feel after my second accident in that summer in 2022. Riding started to feel like a burden, like a heavy burden, which I had to rid myself of. So yeah, finally, it seems that for some reason or another, including the ones I previously mentioned, some riders end up losing the joy or passion for riding. I, however, had a hard time finding evidence for this, but it may be that, like the song says, the thrill is gone away. For some, at least. I do not know if it has ever happened to me, even though I would venture to admit that the thrill did kind of fade in me for a while. But it did not go out completely. The spark that initially drew me towards bikes stayed. Even if buried, or rather repressed. In a nutshell then, at the heart of people giving up riding seems to be a sort of fear or anxiety or guilt about risk. If you're like me, the longer you ride, the more you see and understand how exposed and vulnerable you are. For instance, let's take the motorcycle accidents we have ourselves seen while riding our bikes or even riding our cars. They leave a lasting impression on you, a sense of foreboding and apprehension. I do not know about you, but motorcycle accidents affect me differently from car accidents. Most car crashes, even the bad ones, look familiar. Dents to the front, maybe the back, shattered glass, a crumpled fender. You see the airbags, maybe a door hanging open, and you move on. Don't get me wrong, I do not mean to downplay car accidents. They can be horrendous, and we all have seen them. But motorcycle accidents, many of them, the ones I've seen while riding or driving, they stop you cold. They're scenes of total destruction. The bike is seldom in one piece, debris everywhere. There's a kind of violence to the aftermath that lingers, and the whole thing casts a pall on your soul, so to speak. It's enough to make you reconsider everything. And as if these experiences are not enough, there are the occasional shrines or silent memorials on the side of the roads. And sometimes you see a wreath, flowers, or a cross with the helmet placed gently on top. These roadside shrines, well, they're additional signs and reminders of what's at stake out there for us. While all of these were definite factors that led me to walk away from riding, the main thing with me was about heart or spirit, or rather loss of it. Heart, that old word that when used as an idiomatic expression, as in take heart, means to be brave, enthusiastic, eager, alive. You know, there are some experiences that build one's spirit while others tear it down. For me, 2022 was a heart destroying kind of year. My enthusiasm for motorcycles, my eagerness, my liveliness were all gone. The two back-to-back accidents definitely rattled and soured me, and riding started to feel like a burden, so I decided to call it quits. Sold the bike, which at the time was the Harley Dyna, most of the gear I had accumulated over the years, and even the books I had on motorcycles and motorcycle adventures. The only things I kept were the shoes, which I also used for hiking in the woods, and one of the leather jackets. I had three, for casual wear. I didn't think that I'd return to bikes again. Not all is doom and gloom. I do not mean to dampen anyone's spirits regarding motorcycles. I know enough about life that sometimes everything is turned on its head when irony steps in. The very reasons that drive many riders to give up motorcycles, such as family and responsibilities, are the very reasons that drive others to get back in. For example, while perusing motorcycle forums, I encountered cases where riders were talked back into riding by their own children. And I recently met a man who was being encouraged by his own children to continue riding. One lovely summer evening, my wife and I passed a fellow rider in a parking lot who was standing by his 2015 Harley Davidson Sportster, a beautiful bike, and of course, I had to stop and compliment it, which got us talking about bikes. He told us he had 2 daughters and that he recently entered a raffle for a custom-made Harley. Now, I forgot which Harley. He told us, "I was having a conversation with my family," he said, "and I was like, if I win the raffle, then I can sell this one and keep the free bike." But my daughter goes, "But Daddy, why don't you keep this one and the other one? You can now have 2 bikes." And he laughed, and I laughed so hard at that. Now his own children were validating and sort of encouraging his love for riding bikes. My point in telling this story is that I am well aware that what pushes some people away from motorcycles is also what pulls others towards them. But here's the thing in my case. 2 years and 9 months is a long time, and time has a tendency to heal some wounds, or at the very least provide one with enough time to reflect and reconsider. And let's face it, For many of us who love riding motorcycles, the bug and the itch does not entirely disappear, our life circumstances notwithstanding. So in the spring of this year, I started to get the itch to get back on the saddle. I decided that if I ever returned to riding motorcycles, I needed to brush up on my riding skills. I'd had enough time to reflect and try to get some closure on my accidents. I'm someone who likes to go back and analyze almost every ride to reflect on my skills, the ones I'm doing okay and the ones I need to improve on. So that's what I did. I started thinking about my accidents, and I started realizing that my accidents weren't just bad luck. They were partly the result of the decisions I made, specifically riding powerful, unforgiving bikes that outpaced my skills. The Harley and the Z900 RS were powerful, torquey machines, utterly unforgivable to a rider's errors, very punishing bikes. My earlier bikes, the Moto Guzzi V7, the Royal Enfield Interceptor, were very different. They were gentler, more forgiving, and I made mistakes on those too, but they never bit back like the Z900 and the Harley Dyna. You all know this. Strong torque is like a double-edged sword, so it needs to be handled with extreme care because it cuts both ways. As much as it contributes to the thrill of riding a motorcycle, strong torque in certain situations can also land you on your ass. Mind you, I do not blame the bikes. It's just that I bit more than I could chew at the time, meaning that my riding skills were not up to par for the type of bikes I rode. Eventually, I booked a one-on-one session with a Motorcycle Safety Foundation coach and reviewed clutch control, cornering, and braking, especially downhill in the rain. And I plan to book more sessions in the near future, as well as retake some MSF basic rider courses. Moreover, I decided that if I ever returned to riding motorcycles, I would only consider bikes with engines under 900cc. Specifically, I started thinking about bikes with engines between 500cc and 850cc. I had had enough of powerful bikes. I needed a motorcycle that was forgiving, a motorcycle that was docile, a motorcycle I felt utterly confident riding, a motorcycle that gave me peace of mind. If you have ever ridden a motorcycle where you thought, gosh, if this thing gets away from me, I'm in serious trouble, then you know what I mean about peace of mind. Royal Enfield Interceptor and the Moto Guzzi V7 came to mind because I loved riding them. I had owned them both, and both reflected these qualities, especially the Guzzi. The fact that I ultimately ended up with a 1200cc engine bike, aka my current Triumph Bonneville T120, is something that still shocks me today, even though I am now very glad I ended up with it, because once I got over the initial shock from how hard the T120 pulls from a stop, I came to realize that it is a rather gentle beast, unlike the Harley or the Z900 RS. The story of how I ended up with the Triumph T120 will be addressed on another video soon. So, no, I didn't stay away from motorcycles forever, and there are many reasons why I returned to them, which I am sure I share with many of you. Love of the open road, being in contact with everything around you, something that a car does not allow, being part of a community of very interesting people, and so on and so forth. My wife has a simpler explanation. You love bikes, she says to me when we discuss this. In a nutshell, I guess that's why I return, and this is what I learned throughout this experience. If you feel that your peace of mind is gone because of a bad experience with motorcycles, and you need a break from them, take that break. It's okay to step away. It's okay to admit that your skills need work, that your fear is real, that your peace of mind matters more than your love of motorcycles on the open road. Though I returned to motorcycling, some of the fear and anxiety still lingers. For example, I will not ride two up with my wife. When I purchased the T120, the previous owner had installed a sissy bar for practical reasons, not for riding with his wife, he told me. And looking at the bike one day with my wife, I said that while the sissy bar was indeed super practical for luggage and such, it had to go. It just didn't go with the look of the bike. My wife, however, disagreed. The sissy bar tells others that you have a partner to ride with, she said, smiling. So yes, she would definitely have ridden with me if I'd asked, but I never did. And though I'm not sure what the future holds on this front, I think I'll stick to that philosophy for a while. And even now, I get reminders that the road is rather unpredictable. Just the other day, my wife and I were driving southbound on Route 9A heading towards New York City when a tree suddenly came crashing across the northbound lane and into our lane. Now, the tip of the tree struck the front of our car, missing us for the most part, but hitting hard enough that it really felt like the windshield had shattered. The shock really left us shaken, and after thanking God for extending us such protection, I couldn't stop thinking how different the outcome might have been if I'd been on my motorcycle in what had only been, light rain and calm wind. Nothing to suspect that a tree might come crashing down on you. Even later that week, while riding through Harriman State Park, I was on my motorcycle and I came across another fallen tree that had scattered debris across the road. I stopped, cleared the roadway, and a parked police cruiser pulled up and thanked me. But really, moments like these are further reminders of how vulnerable to accidents, how vulnerable to hurt, how exposed we are as motorcyclists. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. That line, often attributed to Nelson Mandela, sums up why I wanted to share this story with you. My choice to ride again reflects my hopes, not my fears. Ladies and gents, thanks for tuning into the channel. And I hope life is treating you all well. Until next time, Reluctant Biker out.